And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
We are back. What's going on, guys? Happy Saturday to you. Back-to-back podcasts for your boy. Welcome to your Winged Eagle Podcast for September the 28th, 2024. We are just 24 hours removed from my big, long Mr. McMahon Netflix docuseries review that we went live and did yesterday. So if you've not checked that video out yet, please do. We are going to talk a little bit about the Vince McMahon docuseries in this episode, but we're not going to get in detail like we did yesterday. But the wrestling world is reacting to the documentary. Lots of opinions floating around out there about it. We even have some more Janelle Grant news to get into today. So we will have some Vince McMahon discussion along with some Shane McMahon discussion. I think this podcast is going to be mostly news heavy. We're only going to do about 90 minutes. I have another very busy night tonight at work, so I got to head off and do that. So we'll try to wrap this thing up in 90 minutes. It's kind of news heavy. We'll talk a little bit about Grand Slam, which we were here to watch together on Wednesday. We'll talk about last night's SmackDown as well as Bad Blood is shaping up. And we also have Collision Grand Slam airing tonight. It was taped on Wednesday. Spoilers are out. Looks like a pretty good show. And that goes live in just a couple of hours. But today's episode is going to be focused mostly on a lot of that Lucha Brothers news. We have a lot of news on the Lucha Brothers we're going to get into. We have some interesting ideas and thoughts about Shane McMahon. We saw a lot about Shane in the Vince McMahon documentary. A lot of people feel really bad for Shane for how, his relationship with his father was portrayed in that. And he did meet up with the Young Bucks and took a photo with them at the airport the other day, which they posted online. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about an appearance on a podcast that Swerve Strickland made regarding WWE contract tampering and whatnot. We've got Saraya re-signing with AEW. We got some news on Powerhouse Hobbs, MJF. SummerSlam coming to MetLife next year, which will be a 2-day event. We got the Viking Raiders on the way back. Like I said, some Janelle Grant news. And we'll talk a little bit about this past week's Raw with Jey Uso winning the Intercontinental title and where the location might be for the first ever Raw on Netflix. I might be there. And like I said, last night's SmackDown was a pretty decent show. We'll get into that as well. And we'll take a look at what it appears like we're going to see at Wrestle Dream and Bad Blood coming up here next week. So 1 week from today will be October 5th. It will be the date of Bad Blood. We will be here together, watching it together. We haven't done a WWE watch-along since SummerSlam because the next couple of shows, or the shows after that, I believe were internationals, right? Right? Yeah. So it feels like it's been a while since we were up here watching a WWE pay-per-view together, but we will be doing that 1 week from today. 1 week from tomorrow, we will return for our classic pay-per-view watch-alongs. We've had to miss 2 weeks. We missed last week, and we're going to miss tomorrow. I got a big, long, crazy day that I agreed to work, like 11 a.m. to like 8 o'clock at night. It's going to suck, and it's going to mean that I'm going to miss tomorrow's watch-along. So originally, last week, we had planned to do Bad Blood 2003. I'm probably going to schedule that for 1 week from tomorrow. I'm just going to hold off on putting up the link so nobody thinks it's happening tomorrow. After tomorrow, I'll post the link for next Sunday, the day after Bad Blood. We'll watch Bad Blood 2003, and then for the rest of October, we'll try to bust out whatever Halloween Havocs are still left from WCW. So keep that in mind for our schedule because we missed the classic watch-along last Sunday, and we're missing one tomorrow. That's why I came up here on Wednesday and watched Grand Slam with you guys, gave you guys the Vince documentary review yesterday, and of course up here today with a podcast. And we'll be back on Monday to watch Raw as well, because that should be a pretty fun show. We have the last monster standing match between Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, which should be all kinds of fun. We will be watching that together on Monday night. So you're still going to see a lot of me. You're just going to be missing me tomorrow. But thanks again for everyone who was here yesterday for the Vince McMahon review. We had a good audience for that, and thank you to everyone who was here today. And that's kind of what's going to be on the menu. So I'll cruise over here to the chat, knock out some shout-outs, and then we got to jump into wrestling news because, like I said, I gave myself a 90-minute curfew today because I just got a busy one. But I got some notes. We got lots to talk about, and I'm ready to rock. Hope you guys are having a good weekend, by the way, and happy Saturday, and cheers. Shout out to Jersey Mike. I want to say hello to people like Garrett Osborne, Tatanani, Big J, Brandon McNeil. We got Zane G, my boy, Nick Musser, Jay Lambo, Sonic Plays, Isaac, Barry MK, hitting all them important channel members and mods and stuff first. Always good to see Always Radio in here. Ricky Zalvadar, Ben Espinoza. Oh, I didn't see Ben. I see Rodrigo. I see Ricky, Mike Rouse, Daniel Barry Sports, David 86. Good to see you, man. William Cullen, Shell Shock, Rob Strickland, and Barry, I got you. Can't wait to see Scott and Test fight for Stacy, the human being trophy. Yeah, Barry, we're going to do that one. I already made an overlay and I made a thumbnail for that, so I'm going to use it, and I put the work in. So we'll go ahead and bust that one out next week, and I will post the link to that probably Monday. If I post it now, I feel like I'll disappoint you and everybody will think it's tomorrow. But we'll do that one next week since I kind of already did promise it. But I think there's still a couple of Halloween Havocs we haven't done, some early ones. We'll probably have to do like a 92 or a 91 or something like that for the rest of October. And yes, Zane G, next Saturday is Bad Blood. We will be here watching that together. No Unforgivens in October, Tatanani. Well, Unforgiven is more September. So now we're into October. So if anything, if we're going to do a WWE show in October, I think it will be No Mercy. Maybe we can find a No Mercy. We've never watched No Mercy like 99, I don't think, or 2000 together. We might have done 2000. That's one with like Austin and Rikishi. I forgot what the fuck happened at No Mercy 2000. So we maybe we'll bust out a No Mercy for the month as well. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. Subscriptions, please do that. Subscribe. Memberships are open. Super chats are open. All that good stuff. And right on. I'm going to give my page a little refresh here so I can be visible and see where we're at. Rock and roll. Okay. Well, why don't we start off with some wrestling news today? Because there's some interesting news regarding the Lucha Brothers. They're all set to go to WWE, but they have been cock-blocked by Tony Khan. And this is kind of a funny story, although somewhat unfortunate as well. But as we reported last week, and I think the week before, a lot of word was going around for the last several weeks and months, actually, that the Lucha Brothers were on their way out of AEW. And it was reported that they had all but signed with WWE. WWE has plans for them already. They got merchandise plans to market masks and whatnot. And it's pretty much a done deal, just a matter of time until the Lucha Brothers are officially done with AEW and can move over to WWE. Now, there has also been some talk throughout this that Rey Fenix could potentially have time added to his contract due to injury. And it didn't seem like that was going to happen. And then news started coming out that the Lucha Brothers were signing with WWE or had signed with WWE, but then it was also reported that their contracts weren't quite up with AEW. So even though they might fully intend to go to WWE and WWE might fully intend on bringing them in, contractually they are not able to do that yet. So the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week reported that AEW, and I quote, AEW is tacking on injury time to Rey Fenix's contract, which is nearly, but not quite a year. Tony Khan made Fenix and Penta significant offers to stay, but they wouldn't sign a new deal. So that's what the Wrestling Observer reported this week, that they are indeed going to add time to Rey Fenix's contract. Then Fightful Select had an update on this as well, where they said WWE had interest in bringing the Lucha Brothers aboard. Beyond this, Penta had told numerous sources back in June, this is what we talked about over the summer, and since then, that he'd been in contact with WWE and stated that he and his brother were a package deal and that they wanted to go to WWE on the main roster as opposed to NXT. We're told that AEW became aware of this and saw evidence of at least one of the talents discussing their plans to move to WWE this summer. AEW had offered the Lucha Brothers a contract this summer and were hoping to retain the duo for years to come and had immediate plans to put the trios titles on them and Pac at All In. However, Penta and Fenix didn't sign those new deals, but sources we spoke to claimed they had not discussed or communicated plans to leave. The Wrestling Observer reported that a few months had been added to Penta's deal due to injury time by AEW, and Fenix had substantially more. This matches up with what Fightful heard was likely to happen, as sources within WWE had been made aware as of last week that Fenix wouldn't be imminently joining the company. Fenix missed over 6 months between October of 23 and June of 24, well over 3 months from January 22 to April 22, and 3 months in 2021 as well. I don't know which one of those was the injury where he fell through the table. Remember, I think we watched it live and his arm just bent and he came back from that relatively quickly. That was probably the 2022 injury. Goes on to say that when time was added to Penta's deal, we're told that was around the time he publicly tweeted that his present was AEW, as he was hoping that the situation didn't result in Phoenix being held to injury time on his new deal, as there's much more that can be added. So that probably explains why Penta tweeted that. They're trying to get out of this as easily as possible. When discussing contract tampering, there's no oversight or league that could do much about contract tampering. There's no collective bargaining agreement, in wrestling. So when people get, uppity about contract tampering, we've talked about this. I'm like, you can't stop people from talking to their friends. You might not be talking to one of the companies directly, but if your contract is coming up and you're friends with a guy in another company, you text your friend, hey, talk to your boss, see if he's interested in me, that type of thing. So contract tampering can be a little murky, especially when there's no union, there's no collective bargaining agreement, and it's not as protected as it would be in, a professional sports league or whatever. It's a little bit hard to do things, or to hold people accountable for tampering and whatnot, unless it's really, really, really blatant. So it wraps up by saying, the Fightful Select report by saying, contrary to reports, Penta and Phoenix are not signed by WWE in any capacity, and WWE has never acknowledged any reports or rumors about them in any official capacity. Now, I know also Conan factors into this as well. The way this looks, it's kind of a confusing, convoluted story here, but I think you can simplify it in a way that makes it easier to understand. To me, this feels like they shouldn't have ran their mouth. That's all this feels like. I feel like Tony Khan, there's been a lot of chatter about, whether or not this was the right decision for him to add time to the contract, to Phoenix's contract. And the way I look at it, especially with the way things are in AEW right now, I think it's important for Tony Khan to focus on who's with him, focus on who's part of the team, and cut loose who's not. And I think everything is situational. Everything should be judged on a case-by-case basis. And in this instance, if you're watching, one of your top tag teams running their mouth publicly about wanting to go to WWE while they're still under contract, even publicly saying what your conditions for going to WWE are. We're going to WWE. We're a package deal. We don't want to go to NXT. We're going to the main roster. We're together. And then going around telling all of your friends that. And Conan will just say anything on his podcast. So, I think he was a part of this too. I know he ties into this somehow, probably mentioning that they're going to be leaving. I know he's dropped some hints on that before. And Conan is very matter of fact. I've talked about him before. Like when he speaks, he's just very matter of fact. He doesn't seem to give a shit about any, consequences or what he could be saying that could be harmful to, a wrestler. And Penta and Phoenix, they're kind of dumb too. If you want to say this out loud and make these plans to leave so publicly, you should just keep your mouth shut. I think Phoenix probably wouldn't have had time on his deal if they just would have played the game a little bit differently, if they would have had a better approach to this, a better strategy to this. Because now, Tony Khan is like, well, why am I just going to let them go there? They seem to be, all excited about this. They're telling everybody they're leaving. They're still under contract with me, and they're talking about their future in another company. Why am I going to do anything to help WWE out? This is a great tag team that's probably going to see a lot of success over there. So Tony Khan makes the decision to cock block WWE. No, you're not taking my team. I'm going to keep them under, my thumb for the next year at least, and then they can go there. Is that the right decision? No. Yes, it just depends on what the situation is. I am never a believer. I hated it when WWE did this, when they would add injury time, when people wanted to leave, they wouldn't let them go. There was so many examples of this, and it used to frustrate the hell out of this. So I'm not going to turn around and say AEW should be allowed to do this. I think if anybody doesn't want to work in any company, they should be cut loose. But at the same time, you have to think about competition and things like that. And WWE certainly in the past has not been above just keeping somebody. There's been plenty of examples over the years where WWE has simply kept someone under contract just to keep them away from somebody else. There was even a time when WWE, remember when they were just in full-blown acquisition mode, they were signing up everybody they could just so they couldn't go anywhere else. And for Tony Khan to turn around and have a situation now where he finds himself in a similar situation where I'm not going to help WWE by letting these guys go and then become big stars over there. You can kind of understand his mentality, but at the same time, when you look at it from a wrestler's point of view, if Penta and Phoenix really want to go to WWE, granted, they probably should have not ran their fucking mouths. The blame lies a lot on them as well. So even though I don't agree with them running their mouths and being stupid enough to blatantly advertise and announce what your plans are, even though I think that's mind-bogglingly stupid, I also think that it's unfair just to keep someone around when you know they're going to leave. If anything, Tony Khan, I don't know what you, as a boss of contracted wrestlers, can you just tell them to go out there and do anything? I mean, it sounds like there's some creative control, or there are some, a little bit more freedom in AEW. If a wrestler doesn't like an idea, they can just deny it. That's why Miro's been sitting on his ass all this time. I mean, Tony Khan, should have just bring him in to job out, I guess. Other than that, if you are just going to table them and you're going to add injury time to Phoenix's contract and pay these guys and also not use them, it's really hard to defend that logic, because even one argument I've always made on WWE whenever they've done this, one of the things I've always said about them, I said, what drives me the most crazy about them not letting Luke Harper go, or not letting, FTR or Mustafa Ali or anybody else who wants to leave. And when they don't do it, I keep asking myself, well, what would happen to the company if they left? They wouldn't even miss a beat. It would be completely unnoticeable if they would just let them go. It's not like this person's it's not like it's Cody Rhodes leaving AEW, or Hulk Hogan leaving the AWA, or Stone Cold getting fired from WCW and going and changing the business. It's not like that. These are people that can move on, move to another company, and it's not going to affect their former employer's business whatsoever. And so it felt like it was more for spite. It felt like it was WWE just being assholes. I mean, let Luke Harper go. Let Luke Harper go. He's not going to leave the WWE, go somewhere else, become a megastar, and WWE is going to go out of business because of that. That's not going to happen. And the same goes for AEW. Granted, Lucha Brothers are a huge loss. If I'm looking at my tag team division, I do not want to lose this team. But if they're gone, they're gone. If they don't want to be there, they don't want to be there. Your company will survive without the Lucha Brothers. This is not a company-killing loss. All you're doing is just jerking some money around. Now, the Lucha Brothers are in a good position. It's really hard to feel sorry for them, because if Tony Khan is keeping Rey Fenix under contract, that means that Rey Fenix is getting paid. So it's not like they're sitting on their ass not getting paid, not getting used, anything like that. There are worse problems to have in life. But I just think in general, whether you're Triple H or you're Tony Khan or whoever, if you have a talent or talents that are clearly unhappy there and they have every intention of leaving, make them finish out their deals, no problem. But if there's, a situation where you could add more time if you wanted to, or you could keep them around longer, judge it case by case, but I would say 99% of the time you should just cut people loose. So it's a shame that it had to come to that. I firmly believe, though, this is not just 100% Tony Khan being a dick. I think there's a lot that can be rested on the Lucha Brothers' shoulders as well. I feel like if they would have played a different game and had a different strategy throughout this whole thing, they might be heading to WWE a lot sooner. So I'll reserve judgment and laying any blame on anybody, but it's never good to hear about a talent getting injury time added for the sole purpose of keeping them away from the competition. I don't like to hear that when either company does it. It doesn't matter. So we will see if anything changes, in the next couple of months. Maybe if the Lucha Brothers, have some sort of a meeting with Tony Khan, or can you just let us go? Or if there's conditions, Tony Khan let William Regal go, but there was a lot of conditions to that. So I am not thinking that TK is going to be too sympathetic, to that. So we'll monitor the situation and see what happens with the Lucha Brothers. If they are going to remain off of TV for the next year, that's a huge loss for wrestling fans. They're a great team. They're a fun team. I want to see them in a tag team division somewhere in the wrestling universe. They should have just told Tony Khan they wanted to go back to Mexico and just go work down there for a couple months before WWE or something like that, to get out of this a little bit easier. But now, Lucha Brothers, might have put them in a position, to stay in AEW, which will put them in a position to not be used on TV, and will put the fans in a position of having to miss them for almost a year. And that sucks for us. So we will see. But speaking of AEW, we've been talking a lot about Shane McMahon lately. We talked about Shane McMahon last week. We talked a lot about Shane McMahon on Wednesday when we were watching Grand Slam together, thinking that maybe he could come out at the end of that Moxley and Darby match. Now, it does seem like with the Moxley stuff that they might have pulled back a little bit on some of those cryptic things that he was saying. You have no idea what's going on here. You know, all these little subtle hints that Moxley's been dropping feels like it's big, feels like something's big is happening. And, you know, it feels like maybe now they pulled back on it a little bit, unless they're saving it for Wrestle Dream, or saving it for when Moxley beats Danielson for the championship. And I'm one of the few people, I know there's a couple, but I really think I'm one of the only people in the wrestling community, the IWC, that wants to see Shane McMahon in AEW, because I'm a wrestling fan. I've been watching for 45 fucking years. I like seeing weird stuff. I like seeing defections, you know, and still one of the most surreal moments of my life as a wrestling fan is seeing Shane McMahon show up on Nitro with that Nitro Shane McMahon graphic. Still mind-boggling 23 years later to think about that. So, you know, Shane showing up in AEW, having a McMahon working in another company, you know, the way the landscape is right now would just be wild to me. I want to see it. That's going to kill him. The most popular echo that's going on right now. It's like once one person says it, man, it's just, they all say it. You're going to be killing AEW as an alternative product if you bring Shane in. No, you're not. No, you're not. Not even close. I feel like they're already, you know, they're going to be WWE Light. They're already WWE Light. It's another wrestling promotion with a wrestling ring in the same spot, announce table in the same spot, stage in the same spot, Tron on the same spot, hard cam on the same spot. You know, shows are structured the same way. You got the voice of Monday Night Raw on commentary, you know, on AEW Dynamite, and Jim Ross. He's there a lot, you know, and you got Shivani. You got a lot of former WWE wrestlers there. What sets them apart, or what makes them, you know, quote, alternative, is that they do have a little bit more violence. They do set up their stories a little bit differently. You know, the bloody feuds are really bloody, and they don't hold back on the violence in the company. Shane McMahon coming in, I feel like, you know, oh, that's going to kill them as an alternative product. I already feel like AEW kind of has their identity. You know, I don't look at this like I look at Bischoff and Hogan joining TNA, because they came in and legitimately made changes. They came in not only as on-air talents, but behind the scenes they were in control. They switched the 6-sided ring to a square ring, you know, and they started, you know, every time a WWE wrestler came in, they just made them champion. That felt more of like killing what an alternative to WWE was like. Shane McMahon coming in and forming a faction, or a New World Order type of faction with Moxley and stuff, I don't think would really kill them as an alternative product. I think that's just a popular thing to say right now online. I think there's a lot of other things AEW has already done that you could say, oh, that just, you know, that kills their identity as an alternative product. I don't think Shane McMahon is going to be the person to do that. Shane McMahon coming in is going to create a ton of talk. It's going to create a ton of buzz, which is what the company kind of desperately needs right now. So I think that macro, long term, maybe it could harm AEW. Excuse me. But for short term, it's going to be fun as all hell. So I'm still hoping that Shane McMahon comes in. It just depends on, you know, maybe everything cooled down. Maybe Tony and Shane just decided they weren't going to work together, at least right now. And the meeting at the airport between Shane McMahon and the Young Bucks was just a chance meeting. They happened to be on the same flight. They took the picture. You know, you would think if Shane McMahon was coming in, they wouldn't be posting stuff like this. You know, and if Shane McMahon is still going to come in and like help Jon Moxley beat Danielson at Wrestle Dream, well, that's supposed to be Danielson's last match. When he loses the title, that's supposed to be the end of his full-time wrestling career. Is the last time, you know, Danielson wrestles going to be tied into a Shane McMahon storyline in the same match? Is all that going to be happening in the same match? You just don't know. But the picture with Shane McMahon and the Young Bucks was pretty interesting. I think the Bucks tweeted it out and they said, this is going to be an interesting flight or something like that. And I really hope Shane still comes in. I do. I hope he's there. I hope he shows up at Wrestle Dream. The fact that he didn't show up at Grand Slam didn't freak me out too much, because I was thinking about the pay-per-view. You know, he could just show up there and do something to potentially, you know, start some sort of a big storyline or angle in AEW. I would like to see him give it a shot. Why, you know, why not? You know, AEW feels very cold right now. They are still hanging in there. Grand Slam did a decent rating. They pulled in 8 or 9,000 in attendance for that. It's not like they're, shit in the bed or anything, but there has been a decline in their interest in what AEW has been doing, and a little boost, could do them good. Get some buzz, create a surreal moment over there, because that would be crazy. Vince McMahon's son, working for AEW, Vince McMahon's daughter and son-in-law working for WWE, the McMahons. If there was a McMahon and AEW, that would just be wild to me. And I don't know if Tony Khan has any reservations about bringing Shane in. It might be great for his business, but then again, okay, now I have a McMahon working for me. Now I have a McMahon who, has Stephanie and Triple H and Vince all on speed dial on his phone. I don't know how often he talks to these people. Could Shane be a mole, or whatever? From Tony Khan's perspective, I'm like, do I want to trust a McMahon in here? I've got a McMahon family member in my company now. Bringing him on as an on-air talent, I think would be harmless. But when we saw Shane on the documentary, on the Vince documentary, he really seemed like at one point he was under the assumption that he was going to be the heir to the throne. He was going to take over WWE. Vince McMahon didn't want that. Shane McMahon even left the company just to preserve the relationship with his father. It seems like Shane has been let down a lot by his dad, and has really wanted his approval desperately, and has done anything, risking his body and life time and time again, just to show his dad that he's all in on this, and just to show his dad how much he cares, and to try to get approval out of his dad, just like Vince did with Vince Sr. So when you think about all that with Shane McMahon, maybe we had it all wrong. Remember a couple years ago, excuse me, it was at the Royal Rumble 2023, right? Or maybe 2022, whatever it was, whatever that Royal Rumble was, when Shane McMahon was there and apparently tried to change everything and got his ass fired. They let Shane McMahon go because apparently he was such a pain in the ass. But what if he wasn't? You got to remember, Vince was still there. What if Shane had the greatest idea in the world that Vince McMahon just refused to do because of the tension with his father? The story Paul Heyman told on the documentary about Vince denying, a pitched idea of Shane McMahon. And Vince said, the only way you'll get this done is if I'm dead, and handed him a knife and said, go ahead, stab me, because that's the only way it's going to happen. So maybe Shane McMahon had the greatest fucking idea ever, and WWE, or Vince specifically, shot it down and booted Shane out of the company. So maybe Shane wants to try to right some wrongs in his own life and come into AEW. But it just depends. If Shane and AEW do business, it just depends. If he comes in as an on-air talent, and an on-air talent only, I cannot see how this narrative that kills the alternative to WWE identity. I just don't see that. There are plenty of things that can kill your identity, sure, but Shane McMahon coming in as a personality, he's somebody that's wrestled WrestleMania matches, pay-per-view matches. He's had some of the loudest pops in wrestling history. He's got a very recognizable theme song. It's not like Shane is I don't want to say washed up, because he never really was, in the ring full time, but it's not like Shane is a name that fans don't care about. Shane McMahon gets a reaction. People know and remember Shane McMahon almost as much as they do Vince. Think about Shane and Vince getting in the ring, how many memorable matches both of them had. Especially Shane, because he took a few more extra chances out there. So I am still holding out hope that we do see Shane McMahon, and I'm holding out hope that he shows up at WrestleDream and helps Jon Moxley win the title, and they form the New World Order, or the Mox World Order, or the Shane World Order, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Some sort of takeover faction, because otherwise this all looks a little weird without the context of Shane McMahon. I like Moxley, and this new focus that he has. I'm loving that this is giving an opportunity to Marina Shafir, but you're going to need more than Marina Shafir. I cannot see Moxley going into WrestleDream, beating Danielson for the title with help from Marina Shafir. It's got to be way more than that. I love Marina Shafir, but we need some Marina McMahon up in here. We need Shane McMahon showing up. So I think the closing image of WrestleDream, Danielson's hometown, beating him, Moxley with the title, and Shane, and I don't know, shit. Maybe they form like the corporate ministry with the Young Bucks, and maybe it's Shane and Moxley. It's the Blackpool Elite Club or something, and you just get one big mega faction. That might not be good. That's too many members. That treads into NWO black and white territory, but we don't know what they have going on. But if Shane McMahon were to come in and form this group with Moxley, where does that leave the Elite? Because when Shane rumors first started, we were under the assumption Shane was probably going to come in with the Elite. But now with Moxley dropping those hints, it might be Moxley or it might be neither, and Shane McMahon's not coming in at all. We'll have to stay tuned and wait to see what happens there. Swerve Strickland this week was a guest on the Breakfast Club podcast, I believe, and he was asked when WWE tried to re-sign him. And we did hear stories, months back about Swerve being contacted by WWE, and he basically stooged him off and ratted him out to AEW or whatever. But it sounds like they weren't actually contacting him. Here's what he had to say on the Breakfast Club, and I quote, "Yeah, it wasn't like the words re-sign. They asked me about my availability. They never contacted me. They contacted my representation. I'm at a stage now where I enjoy the fact that I don't have that direct contact. When you are progressing and getting higher and you're in rooms with people like Charlemagne the God, T-H-A, the God, Charlemagne the God. What the fuck does that mean? You have to kind of keep space in between these types of conversations. You can check my phone. It's never been there. I never had direct contact. I want to keep that little space. Communication has been reached out." So basically, when we heard stories about WWE reaching out to Swerve, they just reached out to his representation. And I'm very happy for Swerve that he's reached the point where he has representation now. If any of you guys need to contact me, just get in touch with my with my agent. If you want to talk directly to Good Mic Work, you have to go through my agent first. So I'm happy that it wasn't more malicious than that. It sounds like WWE was just curious, reached out to Swerve's reps. Is he available? They said, no, he's not, and they moved on. So I'm glad that there wasn't really some serious contract tampering there, because definitely feels like Triple H was a little bummed that they let Swerve go. And when they tried to bring him back, he's like, no, I'm good, man. And now he's on the verge of becoming, one of the top stars in AEW, and I think he's going to have a little bit of help of a big, giant, beautiful, bald, muscular black man about to come in and put this cat over at some point to help him. And that's terrific, 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 terrific. Speaking of big, beautiful, muscular black men, Powerhouse Hobbs is on his way back. He is set to return, cleared to return to the ring. I cannot tell you how happy I am about that, because the way my brain works, I thought he had way more time. It feels like it's recent. Time just flies by now. I kind of still had Powerhouse Hobbs in my head as somebody who's still on the shelf and not close to returning. So when I saw this news, I'm like, sweet. Fightful Select, by the way, credit to them. Shout out to them. Link in the description below. They broke the news today that Hobbs is set to come back any time now. And I think he's been cleared now for a couple of weeks, which means we should see him at any moment. And we'll see if he shows up, attacks someone, starts an angle, starts a program. I don't want to see him just come back and then not do anything. If you're going to bring him in to do something, because I was really, really high on Powerhouse Hobbs before he got hurt. So I'm hoping that he can, get back on track when he returns. Pretty interesting news too. Saraya has re-signed with AEW, and apparently it's only a 1-year deal. You don't see many 1-year deals, which is weird. Why she added on another year? I thought she might head back to WWE, but Saraya is back with AEW for another 1-year deal. And apparently the match that she has tonight on Collision that you'll see in about 2 hours with Jamie Hayter is really good. So check it out. I'll be looking at it tonight. Shout out to MJF, who landed a role in Happy Gilmore 2. I didn't even know they were making a Happy Gilmore 2. Like 30 years after the first one? That is crazy. I didn't even know they were making that one. When it comes to the Sandler movies, I liked Happy Gilmore okay. How can you not like Bob Barker and that type of shit? But those early Sandler movies, the Billy Madison and the Happy Gilmore, they're funny, but they're not my favorite. Billy Madison, I love the teacher. I forget her name. She used to be married to Pete Sampras. Fucking hot as hell. I do like her. Norm Macdonald's in that movie too. It's good. But the comedy is just a little bit too stupid for me. I was more of a Big Daddy guy, for Adam Sandler movies. The movies where he's just really crazy, the Billy Madisons and the Happy Gilmores and the Little Nickies and shit like that is too much. I hated like the Austin Powers movies and the Ace Ventura movies. Those comedies are just too stupid. I don't like when it treads into that. I like a good comedy. I like slapstick and, juvenile humor and all of that. But some about the Austin Powers and Ace Venturas and Billy Madisons are just a little too dumb for me. I just was really never a fan. But Happy Gilmore was a little better because of some of the cameos. And how young is the girl, his love interest in that movie? She's the mom in Modern Family. How young she was back then. Crazy. So congrats to MJF. I'm hoping that he's Shooter McGavin's son or something, because he's gotta be a heel. He has to be a heel in that movie. And the actor that played Shooter is still alive, right? He's probably going to be in it. And I feel like MJF should definitely be his son. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe Happy Gilmore 2 is about Shooter and Happy's sons facing each other in a golf tournament. I don't know. But MJF has landed a role in that. Congrats to him. Big news regarding next year's WWE SummerSlam 2025. Now, it was announced earlier this year that SummerSlam 2026 would be in Minneapolis, and it would be a 2-night event. So we were under the assumption that the 2-night SummerSlams would not start for 2 years. We were wrong. They are starting next year at SummerSlam 2025, August 2nd and 3rd, live from MetLife Stadium. If you're going to do a New York show, it's got to be summer. You can never do a WrestleMania there. No more of this cold weather bullshit. But in the summertime, MetLife will probably be a totally pleasant place to hold SummerSlam, and it will be a 2-night event. And it's going to be, I don't know, Cardi the Stallion has something to do with it or something like that. She was part of that announcement. So that's exciting news. MetLife gets SummerSlam next year, 2-night event. I will not be going, but we will be watching. So set your VCRs. We're going to be doing a 2-night watch along next summer. Don't forget. Also, the Viking Raiders appear to be headed back to the WWE. Both are ready to return to the main roster, and they will likely be returning under the War Raiders name. This is according to WrestleVotes Radio. Now, they did release or air some sort of a funny little vignette on Monday night when we were watching Raw together, and it said like RPF, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's Penta and Rey Fenix, but apparently some of you guys decoded it. I am about as illiterate on Scandinavian mythology as a human being can be, so I have no idea what any of that fucking bullshit means. It's a weird-ass gimmick. I wish if they would go back to War Machine, that would be even better. But War Raiders, at least that's a little better. That Viking Raiders shit drove me so nuts. So I'm happy that they're coming back. They were always a really fun team, and hopefully they're healthy and ready to rock and roll. Ivar's been around, but it was Eric who's the one who was injured, right? And I'm sure they'll be coming back with Sarah Logan or whatever her weird-ass Viking name is. So the War Raiders are on their way back. That's exciting news. Let me see what else we have on wrestling news here. I guess the final thing we'll get into in terms of news is it's not really that huge of a story, but Janelle Grant's PR team sent out a press release cataloging the comments and allegations against Vince McMahon and WWE, claiming that the Vince McMahon docuseries only scratched the surface of McMahon's, quote, criminal and horrific behavior and doesn't tell the full story of his abuse, sexual assault, and human trafficking of Janelle Grant. Now, Brandon Thurston was the one that sent out this tweet, and attached to it was basically from Janelle Grant's legal team, a long statement listing and kind of cataloging some of Vince McMahon's scummy behavior. Now, some of this was talked about in the documentary. Some of this we already know about. I think pretty much all of it we already know about. And I'm not really sure what the point was other than, just kind of putting things down in print of Vince McMahon's behavior. It brought up Sable suing the WWE in 1999. It has the rape allegations from Rita Chatterton. Even mentions Mercedes Moné, saying that she left WWE because she didn't like the way McMahon talked down to her. And she recently said she'll probably never go back there because of that. So we will see when her contract is up if that is the truth or not. They talked about how Vince McMahon wanted to do a storyline where he impregnated his daughter Stephanie. We talked about that yesterday, how Vince openly admits in the documentary that he was, sexually abused and there was incest going on in the trailer that he lived in as a kid. And then as an adult, wanting to do a TV storyline where he impregnates his own daughter. what I just don't, I don't even know how you even like respond to something like that. They also talked about, they had talked about some Bret Hart comments where once he was made aware of the allegations where he pretty much denounced Vince and told him he could burn in hell and he has zero respect for him. They talked about Ronda Rousey, you know, talking about the culture in WWE as well. They listed the Ashley Mazzaro stuff, which was the hardest part of that documentary to watch. They saved that till the very end, and they paired it with that very, very disturbing clip from Monday Night Raw of Vince McMahon. I don't care if you're in character or not. He was an absolute monster to her, the way he was in her face. And you can tell that he just gets perverse enjoyment out of this. You know, yes, he's using the cameras rolling as an excuse to be disgusting, you know, because he can be as nasty and as vile and as disgusting as he wants to be when the cameras are rolling, because he's under the disguise of the Mr. McMahon character. And the way he was getting in her face like that. And they talked about, you know, her being raped on the Kuwait tour and WWE trying to cover it up to protect the relationship with the military. They listed all that in here as well, along with an unflattering story that Francine shared about Vince McMahon, as well as Gail Kim and even Nikki Bella talking about when she was yelled at or screamed at by Vince McMahon. So it was just kind of like this random listing or cataloging of these situations, these gross situations involving Vince that maybe weren't touched on hard enough in the documentary. But like when you read this stuff, I'm like, I don't even know why they bothered doing this, because we know about all this stuff and there's even way more than this. This is just a handful of like random examples. So I'm not really sure. I think her, you know, her legal team is really trying to hammer home, you know, the point that Vince McMahon is a sick son of a bitch. And we already know that. So that's kind of the latest from Janelle Grant's team. Now, she was asked to pause her lawsuit with Vince to make way for a federal investigation back in May. They asked her to pause it for 6 months. So that's coming up soon. She should be able to resume this lawsuit before the end of the year, and we will see whatever new news we get out of this. But Vince McMahon is, I'm sure, going to have his day in court at some point. Moving on from the news, we'll get into some Grand Slam stuff real quick, because I want to talk about MVP. But before we do that, I want to knock out a couple of super chats and thank a couple of more people who are in here. I want to thank, or I want to say hello to Financial Truth Academy. I'm trying to hit any new channel members that I see. Good to see a new one. Always happy to see Vontae in here. Jet the Hawk in the house. Right on. Good to see you as well. Juliet has gifted out a commentary membership to Leon Gore. Thank you so much for that, Juliet. And Tomas is in the house. Tomaso Radio, what's up, bro? Good to see you. Appreciate that $5. Hey, Greg, SmackDown was in my neck of the woods last week. I got to meet Bayley and meet and greet. And greet. That's awesome. She was berg nice. Well, I am so happy. Bayley's awesome. Happy to see her picking up the win last night on SmackDown as well. Bayley's the best. That's cool. Meet and greets are awesome. Good to see you in here as always, Tomas. All right, let's talk quickly about Dynamite this past week. Now, we were here watching it together, so we're not going to do a big full review or anything, but Grand Slam was this past week, and we did see the return of Nigel McGuinness to the ring. He returned it all in, but now him and Danielson finally got that match done. They opened up Grand Slam with it. And Nigel, you know, for someone who's been out of the ring 13 years, he looked pretty fucking good in that match, I will say. But it was a match that I didn't necessarily need. I appreciated it. I appreciate the history between these two guys. Trust me, I do. But the match was, you know, to me, it was just okay. I'm glad that they got it done. I'm glad that they were able to have the match. I'm glad that, you know, Tony Khan was able to nerd out, you know, for a match and whatnot. And they have so much Ring of Honor history with Danielson and Nigel. I'm glad they get to keep that story under this umbrella. You know, but overall, you know, Danielson put Nigel out. And it was a good match, but good was about it. And that's all I really have to say about it. We had Hook defeating Roderick Strong to retain the FTW title. And after the match, I had been saying this for a few weeks. We've talked about this, how I feel that Hook should just retire the FTW title and give it back to his dad. I don't really see what the point of having that title around anymore is. It was nice when it first got brought in, part of Team Taz, you know, a little piece of history. play around with the title, do some things, but the company has 67,000 championships in it, and you just don't really need this FTW title. So we've been calling for Hook to retire this thing for a while. I even pitched the exact same thing that Hook did here a few weeks back. I said, what Hook needs to do whenever he wins back the title from Jericho or whatever, he needs to cut a promo where he gives the title back to his dad. And after he beat Roderick Strong, and the two even shared a nice handshake and show respect after the match, Hook exited the ring, went over to the commentary table where Shivani was waiting with a microphone, and officially retires the title and gives it back to his dad. They shared a moment. I was happy for Taz. That was nice. That was nice. And it now officially retires the FTW Championship. Taz can finally have it back, put it back up on his wall or his mantle or whatever. I'm sure that makes him feel very good that he doesn't have to worry about that title getting lost or stolen or fucked up or anything. And he's got it back now. So that was the right decision. Hell of a tag team match. Really enjoyed the Bucks against Ospreay and Fletcher. I'm glad that the Bucks retained here because I am more interested in Ospreay as a singles. He's facing Ricochet next week, don't forget. And I don't really think that Ospreay and Fletcher, even though they have history, even though they've tag teamed before, them winning the titles here over the Bucks felt out of place. Plus, Ospreay was doing this because Don Callis cashed in a favor that he owed him. And I've been waiting for Ospreay to get away from the Callis family. This is taking forever. This is like Kill Switch turning on Christian. I'm like, just fucking get to it already. So Callis at some point during the match brought out a screwdriver to give to Kyle Fletcher. Ospreay didn't want him to, stopped him from using it. That allowed the Bucks to capitalize and get the win and retain the title. So I think maybe next week, when because I've been, ever since Ricochet signed with AEW, we knew we were going to get a Ricochet and Ospreay match. And I said, whenever that match happens, Ricochet should win. You know, if you really want to show WWE that you're going to treat Ricochet differently than they treated him and get him to a different spot on the card than he was in WWE, losing here, I'd beat Ospreay. I feel like Ricochet needs the win more than Ospreay does. Ospreay's a made man. He's going to be a star, world title contender in that company, for years to come. And Ricochet can be as well, but I think you need to make a statement with Ricochet that he's here to be a big-time player, and he should beat Will Ospreay. And now that you had this angle or this spot in the match with Callis trying to give Fletcher the screwdriver, I'm hoping that plays into next week. And Callis or Fletcher or somebody costs Will Ospreay the match against Ricochet, because if Ricochet just straight beats him, which I normally wouldn't be against, I'm like, hell, beat Ospreay clean. It's fine. Beat him clean. Who gives a shit? Ospreay's still going to go on to win world title one day. It doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt him. It's not going to be buried. Beat him clean. But I don't want to see Ospreay lose 2 straight matches in back-to-back weeks. So maybe not beat him clean. Have, maybe have Callis do something to help Ricochet win or something like that next week. But I still believe that Ricochet should win that match. We had Jon Moxley, we should mention that, beating Darby Allin in the main event. That was a brutal match. He beat the piss out of Darby. Darby put up a good fight, but in the end, Moxley took him down. He didn't really need much help. No Shane McMahon, no Claudio or anything like that. I think it was pretty much Moxley taking care of Darby on his own, and really gross the way Darby was blowing the blood bubbles in his mouth and the blood froth. It was so disgusting. Darby just completely annihilated himself, and I hate that this had to happen to Darby. Obviously, they've pivoted here because they gave Darby a title shot. And then, my belief is, Shane McMahon became available and they're okay, let's do this instead. And that's kind of why they're changing things up. If Shane McMahon is not coming in and they're making this creative direction without him and taking this away from Darby, I'm like, man, I wonder why. So the fact that Moxley kind of beat him clean or whatnot really makes me feel like Moxley is going to power his way back and become a 4-time AEW world champion, which is crazy. And Darby will still have his day. I would not put the world title on Darby until after Mount Everest. I just wouldn't. Unless, one thing Tony Khan could do, I take that back. I know this is morbid. God, I shouldn't even say this shit out loud. But if I'm Tony Khan, I'm going to make Darby my champion before he goes to Everest. That way, if he dies up there, an AEW world champion died on Everest, and, he could be immortalized as, never losing the title, died a champion, It's that Anthony Jeselnik joke. I played a hide and seek as a kid, and one kid locked himself in a refrigerator and suffocated and died. But I say the kid's lucky, because how many kids get to die a winner? But Darby, if he were to go up there as champion, but it takes so much preparation. He has to train and prepare for that for a couple of months. So Darby Allin, I believe, is AEW's Jeff Hardy. I believe he will have a legacy similar to Jeff Hardy, provided he does not kill himself in the ring first. I feel like he will win some world championships. And I don't think this match with Moxley on Wednesday did anything to derail those future plans. He'll get there. But if this fucker wants to climb Mount Everest and risk his life, I'm not risking my championship on him until he comes back safe. So next year, maybe all in Texas. Maybe that's where Darby wins the championship. We'll see. Darby will win AEW Gold. Save this clip and show it to me if he doesn't ever win it, because I think he will. But I don't think it really I don't really think it mattered that he lost here. This just felt like it's AEW changing their creative direction and doing a slight pivot. That's all. And unfortunately, Darby was the casualty there, and that sucks. But it does set up now an interesting match at Wrestle Dream, Moxley and Danielson, excuse me. And that is where I really hope we see Shane McMahon. I want to see it. I do. I really, really, really do. And I know I'm crazy, but that's okay. You're subscribed to a crazy person. Congratulations. And the other big news on Dynamite is MVP returning, or debuting, I should say. Now, during Dynamite, I even said this during the watch along, I happened to have Twitter pulled up, and I saw a tweet as it came out, 1 minute old, from MVP. I forgot what it even said. It said something like, it's going down. It's going down now. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Not 20 minutes later, when Prince Nana comes out to provide an update on Swerve, out comes MVP. He's got the cane. He's got the mic. Fans are popping. If you see MVP, you know who's going to be behind him. I haven't even seen the reports on whether or not Bobby Lashley has signed with AEW. I just know that he's coming in. MVP ain't coming in by himself. And once MVP comes out, I'm like, oh shit, Bobby and Shelton must have signed. And they better have both signed. I don't want just one. I want them both. Bobby and Shelton, they're both two old men, but two old men that can kick fucking ass. So MVP shows up and talks to Nana and talks about how much he likes Swerve and basically blames Prince Nana. It's not Swerve's fault. It's his management's fault. And he hands Nana a business card, which apparently says Hurt Syndicate on it. So Hurt Syndicate is probably going to be the name of this group. And you can kind of tell where they're going here. He's offering his managerial services to Swerve. I feel like Swerve is going to choose Prince Nana, which will piss off MVP, which brings in Bobby Lashley. That feels how they're setting this up. And, Lashley coming in, this guy's a major star and former WWE champion. He can be their version of a Brock Lesnar. He can be Black Brock, plus you got Shelton there, who's Black Angle. You got some fighters there, man. Lashley and Shelton coming in. I'm extremely excited to see that. And working with Swerve. I like that they're doing this because it feels like, you think back to when Kofi won the championship at WrestleMania. They had that clip backstage of MVP, very, very emotional. And you can see the star power of Swerve. You can see that he's going to make it. And I feel like MVP and Lashley might want to help him. Let's go help out, our brother, and help the rise of this Black world champion that won the title last year and make an even bigger star out of him. So Lashley might be coming in to largely put Swerve over, but probably not at first. If Lashley comes in and immediately has a match with Swerve and you beat Lashley, I don't know what you do there. So I feel like Lashley will probably win like the first match. And if you try to do it quickly, like if you can somehow do this, because when is Wrestle Dream? See, Wrestle Dream's coming up in 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks from today, right? We're going to be here watching Wrestle Dream too, by the way. So the next 2 Saturdays, or is Wrestle Dream a Sunday show? I think it's a Saturday show. So the next 2 Saturdays, we're going to be missing Winged Eagles. We're going to be here for Bad Blood and Wrestle Dream. So if you can do all this as early as Wrestle Dream, and you book Swerve and Lashley, and you get there in the next week or so, you could do the deal where like Swerve is still not recovered from the Hangman Page match. He's still suffering the effects of being choke slammed on a fucking brick. And so he gets back in the ring too early and Lashley puts him down. And then you do the return where Swerve winds up winning. But at the same time, if you're bringing in MVP to form the Hurt Syndicate, are you going to do that right off the bat? Boom, 2 weeks a match at Wrestle Dream, and then you're off to the races. And then by the time we get to November, Lashley's already dropped a match to Swerve Strickland. So we'll see how it all goes, but it feels like Lashley coming in might largely be to help get Swerve over. He'll come in, he'll face Swerve, maybe beat him at first, and then Swerve, comes back to get the blow-off victory. I'm hoping the World Championship is tied in there somewhere. Granted, it's crowded at the top. You got Moxley probably about to take the belt, from Danielson, and I don't know, if Hangman Page and Swerve are going to rekindle their thing. Lashley coming in now. A lot of stuff happening, but I'm intrigued on what could go on with MVP and Swerve. So I feel like Swerve is going to deny MVP's offer, stick with Nana, unless they all form a big group, but then who's the leader, Swerve or Lashley? Kind of reminded me of like Almost Famous when Jimmy Fallon shows up as the manager, but they already have a manager. He goes, yeah, I know, but your manager needs a manager. So maybe MVP wants to come in and just be the manager of the manager or whatever. So he's trying to get Swerve to dump Nana. I don't think that's going to happen. Everybody loves Prince Nana. That duo is not going to be broke up right now. He'll deny his advances. MVP will bring in Lashley, and that's how that will all come together. That should be fun. And especially if it's done primarily as a way to really help elevate Swerve to that next level. Because he's already been world champion. He's already beat some big major players, but this would be a big one. Swerve getting a win over Bobby Lashley, would be incredible. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see Brock Lesnar again based on, what was said about him in that Vince documentary and what we know about him from the lawsuit. So I think Lashley's the closest thing to a Brock we got right now. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. Now, there's a lot of chatter about, do you want to just keep signing WWE guys? It's pro wrestling. There's pro wrestling free agents. If Bobby Lashley is sitting there as a free agent, you got to be a fucking buffoon to not sign him. What are you going to do? Not sign Bobby Lashley, a former multi-time world champion, wrestling veteran, credible, well-liked, appreciated? You're not going to sign him because you're worried that the IWC will be mad that you're signing WWE? Fuck them. You got a free agent, Bobby Lashley. You bring him in. Now, I understand you shouldn't sign everybody. TNA used to do that. I feel like any WWE star that became available, they just sign them. Sight unseen. So there's some times where that will apply. Yes, you just don't want to sign up everybody that the other company releases, but there are some that you cannot pass up. And if a Bobby Lashley or a Randy Orton or an AJ Styles or anybody like that becomes available in either company, you fucking sign that person. So I don't care that Bobby Lashley is old, because I don't think Bobby Lashley's coming in there to take opportunities away from young people. I think he's there to make one of their already established stars, make them an even bigger one. If that's what this whole thing will ultimately be about, as a wrestling fan, I have no idea how you could possibly reject that. So we will see how it all looks when they come in. And we'll see if Tony Khan can succeed with the Hurt Syndicate where WWE failed. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. We will find out soon enough. I want to thank everybody who was here last Monday with us watching Monday Night Raw and watching us witness Jey Uso beating Braun Breaker to win the Intercontinental Championship, which is half surprising and half not. The fact that Jey Uso was the one in this match was making me think he actually did have a chance here, but it's not often you see somebody win the championship. Here's a question for you. Who had the title longer? Who had the Intercontinental title longer, British Bulldog or Braun Breaker? Because the Bulldog won it at SummerSlam 92 and immediately dropped it to Shawn, I think like the next month or early October, something like that. So Breaker did not have a long run with the title. We were watching the match, thinking out loud, saying things like, or I was saying things like, they could be doing this confidence thing with Braun Breaker. That's why he lost to Sami Zayn, right? At Money in the Bank. He let his confidence get the better of him. He's made this mistake before, and he's let, veteran wrestlers beat him, take advantage of his inexperience and his stupidity and his cockiness to get the win. And that could be a story they are telling with him. And they told that on Raw. He was beating the piss out of Jey Uso and, really kind of laying back, playing it safe or whatever. And Jey Uso was able to come back, and his confidence, his overconfidence, costed him. And, the way I was looking at it, I'm like, Gunther held the IC title for like 2 Olympics. Fucking Reagan was president when that guy won the title. So he held the title for a long time. I got no problem with a little hot potato. Fucking cares. It's a big deal. Hot potato it. And instead of everybody, focusing on how this did Breakker wrong, it might have done him right. Think about Bret Hart losing the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. How long did it take him to win that world title? About as long as it took Davey to lose it. Diesel wins the championship in the summer of 1994. Immediately drops it at SummerSlam. 3 months later, world champion. So to me, WWE taking the belt off of Bron Breakker means they have bigger plans for Bron Breakker. And I also think he's moving into a babyface role, because when it comes to heels, I like Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman as heels, but Bron Breakker feels like better as a babyface because of his charisma. Yes, he's big and bad and mean and vicious, but he's got charisma. He's got that Scott Steiner voice. He's a very, very energetic personality, and one that, fans can get behind as that like explosive babyface. He doesn't seem vicious or malicious. He's always just very, has a lot of high energy and stuff. And that can sometimes work as a heel, but I feel like he would be a really, really great babyface. And now I feel like the vision, if I had to guess, I feel like the vision might be Bron Breakker admitting his mistakes, admitting that he has an overconfidence problem, working through that, moving into a babyface role, and then winning the Royal Rumble or the Chamber and challenging Gunther at WrestleMania. I think it's Gunther and Breakker at WrestleMania. They could do that. So I feel like Gunther losing the IC, we talked on Monday that he could just turn around and win it right back. Sure, he could. He could have another match with Jey Uso and this time do it right. Basically, just replay the same thing you did with Sami Zayn. Learn from his mistakes in the first match, capitalized on it in the second match. But then you got the Intercontinental title on him again, which means you're going to have to take it off of him again before you want to push him into something bigger. So that might have just been a cup of coffee. He just might have been one of those guys that holds the IC title for 1 month and that's it. It's weird in today's modern wrestling era. We don't see that a whole lot. Not as much as we did 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But I certainly don't have a problem with it. There's a lot of fans, I can't believe they did that, and Breakker was buried, and my God, I'm like, Jey Uso, he's super over. He's been overdue for a singles championship. Much like Darby losing to Mox, Darby's future, Darby's destiny to be AEW World Champion has not been completely buried because of that loss from Mox. Same thing with Bron Breakker. I think this Intercontinental title loss is going to do similar to, for Breakker, what it did for Bret and Diesel. It's a stepping stone. There's been guys who've won that title before and gone on to a bigger championship. And for Triple H to make that creative decision to take a championship off of somebody that appears so dominant and unbeatable in 1 month makes me think they got way bigger plans for him, for the future and heading into WrestleMania if they want the Intercontinental title done or title run ended that quickly. Unless something's changed since SummerSlam and Triple H has got a different view on Bron Breakker, I don't know, but it feels like, to me, if I had to guess, Breakker is heading off to do bigger things. And this week, we've got the big last monster standing match between Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, and my plan is to be here Monday night. We had a pretty low audience last week for Raw watch-along. I was thinking about not doing one, but since we're not here tomorrow for the Classic, we'll be here Monday for sure to watch Raw together. I'll put a link up to that probably tomorrow night or something. So keep a lookout and stay subscribed. And finally, we'll touch on last night's SmackDown episode. It was a pretty good show. Pretty typical stuff, though. It opened up with a Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton promo where Cody is explaining to Randy why he's teaming with Roman Reigns. Feels like Cody's got to go around and explain himself now to everybody. That's when Kevin Owens comes out, but he wasn't given any opportunity to speak because the Bloodline showed up when Owens and Orton and Cody are in the ring. And Kevin Owens proposes a tag team match between himself and Randy Orton against Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. And Cody then chimes in. He goes, yeah, because there's 3 of you and there's 3 of us. And then Owens is like, no. He goes, it's okay. You've got your tag match to worry about. You and Roman, you and your butt buddy Roman. It seemed like he was just butthurt about it. You and Roman, you've got your tag match. Go off you with your Roman. This is me and Randy's match. And that's going to be the main event. Now, they've been doing so much teasing. Let's fast forward to the main event, by the way. Let's just go right to the main event. It's Randy Orton and Kevin Owens versus Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. During the match, you have, because you have the Tongans out there, Cody Rhodes shows up. Now, backstage, Randy even told Cody, hey, come out if things get hairy. Feel free to come out and help us. So Cody did that. He comes out and helps out, starts brawling on the outside of the ring, but then Jacob Fatu gets a hold of him. After Kevin Owens has Solo pinned in the ring, Jacob grabs Cody, throws him into the ring. Cody hits the referee's legs from behind. The referee crumples down, not able to count the pin when Owens had the match won. And then Jacob swings around the other side of the ring, hits Kevin Owens with a couple of super kicks. Referee comes to, and Solo Sikoa pins Kevin Owens. And now Kevin Owens is all pissed off at Cody Rhodes for costing them the match. And we've been wondering and talking about when Kevin Owens is going to turn heel and when this is going to happen. But one thing that I mentioned, maybe 2 or 3 Winged Eagles ago, I said, what would be funny? And I just kind of mentioned this as a joke, and now I think it might actually happen. I said, what would be funny is if WWE did something just to, not even to troll, but just to have a little bit of fun. Like they tell you this story, they lay all of this groundwork, they leave this breadcrumb trail of evidence to what appears to be a Kevin Owens heel turn, future heel turn. And then he just doesn't do it. Like we're all waiting for it and he just doesn't turn heel. He's like, well, I'm not turning heel. What the fuck are you talking about? Just don't do it. But I might be half right. Because I think what they're going to wind up doing is that Owens not only is going to not turn heel, but Randy Orton's going to turn heel instead. Now, I had kind of pitched also an idea of both of them turning heel together because we do need some heels. SmackDown does need some heels. And if they're going to be moving to 3 hours next year, I said if you make Orton and Owens heel and then you find some way to get Jey Uso and Sami Zayn over on SmackDown, maybe in some trade, that'll help boost the roster. Good mix of heels and baby faces. AJ Styles is on his way back. You can get Shinsuke Nakamura back in the mix. Perhaps Charlotte will probably be back next year to really help bolster that SmackDown roster. And Kevin Owens and Randy Orton is like a heel duo, like a rated RKO duo or a best friends duo would be. Or friendship. What was Jericho and Owens called when they were together? But I feel like more like our rated RKO is kind of the level they would be at. That would be really fun to watch Double O, Orton and Owens, just tear through everybody. But it might even be more fun if it just turned out to be Randy Orton, because Randy Orton on camera right now seems to be the one that's the most level-headed. He's the one who's trying to give Cody the benefit of the doubt, communicate with him. Owens is the hothead, but it might wind up being reversed. It might be Owens, not going heel, and Randy Orton is the one that winds up going heel. So I think it's either going to be Randy Orton going heel or they're both going to go heel. But 2 big baby faces turning heel at the same time, that they might get in the way of each other. So that's why I think it might just be Randy Orton, because at some point we're going to need Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton one-on-one, and that might happen at the Royal Rumble. And based on Cody's involvement now, in his tag team match with Roman coming up at Bad Blood, how is Cody not going to be in this War Games match against the Bloodline? And for that matter, how is Randy Orton and Kevin Owens not going to be in this thing either? So I'm starting to think that this belief that we've all had all year long, that Sami Zayn and Jey Uso are going to be coming over to SmackDown to get involved in the War Games, and they're going to form, with Jimmy perhaps, the original Bloodline to go up against the new Bloodline, might not be the case at all. I think it's going to be Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens against the Bloodline at War Games. It feels like that's what they're going to do. And they could be framing that match around Kevin Owens. Can he be trusted? He doesn't like Roman Reigns. Now he's got to be on the same team as him. Focus so heavily on that. The teases, talk about, do angles on TV and segments on TV where Kevin Owens is really struggling to accept this, to coexist with Roman Reigns, voicing his reservations about this. And then do it throughout the course of the match when everybody and the fans are like, oh, Kevin Owens could turn and help the Bloodline win. He doesn't turn. Randy Orton does. Randy Orton turns instead. And then maybe you've got Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes on Saturday night's main event. I think it would be better if it was Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, because at some point you got to get that match done, but you're not going to do it WrestleMania next year. You could do it at the Rumble, but Saturday night's main event would be fun. It would be just like Hogan and Andre. WrestleMania rematch. on NBC. That's what I would do. Cody and Roman. And, it'd be a babyface match. I don't give a shit. Have The Rock come out and cost Roman or something. I don't know. You can have a whole lot of fun on that December Saturday night's main event, depending on what you do at War Games. But I feel like it might be Randy Orton turning heel now and not Kevin Owens. But that's just a hunch. That's just a hunch. Also, last night we had Bayley defeating Naomi, so they're not going to go with the predictable triple threat. I thought they would do another funny finish here, and they would wind up booking Naomi and Bayley both to face Nia Jax at Bad Blood. But this match was good. Bayley beat Naomi with the top rope elbow. Really good match, fun match. New number one contender Bayley. She will now face Nia Jax at Bad Blood. And prior to that match, Nia Jax in a really great segment backstage with Tiffany Stratton, getting on Tiffany's case for letting her get pinned last week. That was when Nia got pinned by both of them. And it was great. Last week when Nia Jax was being pinned, you could hear her screaming, no. She's great. So she is pissed at Tiffany. She grabs Tiffany by the throat, just holds her. And she says something like, if you ever do that again, not only that's going to be bad for me, it's going to be bad for you. And just holds her so tight by the neck and lets her go. And Tiffany seems visibly shook by it. So babyface Tiffany might be on the way. Tiffany is such an obnoxious fucking idiot. I can't imagine this person being a babyface, but I got to tell you, I had sympathy for her last night. And you know who that's a credit to? That's a credit to Nia Jax. The way she got in her face like that. And Tiffany, she kind of half looked like she was trying to hold back a laugh, a smile, but she did it so well to where it was convincing. It was, I think she was trying to knock corpse, and she wound up making a face that made me feel bad for her. And Tiffany drives me crazy. So the fact that I felt bad for her there, that's good. And I can, she's definitely going to be taking that title from Nia Jax. It just depends on if they're going to do it right away at Bad Blood or if they're going to stretch this relationship out. How long can Tiffany take the abuse? If Nia Jax is choking Tiffany in September, I can't see how these two are still aligned in February, So if they're going to if Tiffany's going to cash in on Nia Jax, it's probably going to come this year, and it could come 1 week from today. We will see if Tiffany walks out of Bad Blood as the new women's champion. And based on the card, I feel like she's got an excellent opportunity to do that, because what are we looking at? Punk and Drew, Cody's in a tag. Gunther and Sammy is probably happening, but I guess not at Bad Blood. I guess Triple H is hell-bent on these 5-match cards, which I think is stupid. I think we should do 7. I think WWE should be 7. AEW should be 9. That's how I think they should be separated out, with their pay-per-views. 9 for every AEW show, 7 for every WWE show. That would be perfect for me. 5 is too short. 12 is too much. So somewhere in between is what these companies need to do. So if there's going to be no more matches added to Bad Blood, unless they, on this Monday's Raw, is Sammy going to be able to convince Gunther to face him and then they make the match for Bad Blood? I feel like that's going to be a crown jewel type of thing. But then you got a month to build that between Sammy and Gunther for Saudi Arabia. So I suppose they could add one more, but it's not looking like it. It feels like next Saturday we're going to be looking at a 5-match card. And I just think that's kind of short and kind of boring, but I'm sure the show will still be super fun. Also, we had Carmelo Hayes defeating Andrade last night. This was match number 6 in their series. Andrade was up 3-2. It's even Steven at 3 apiece now because LA Knight came out and tried to get involved, and Andrade got Hayes pushed Andrade right into LA Knight, who knocked him off the ring apron, and then Andrade was rolled up for a 1-2-3. A lot of backstage arguing after this one as well. And that now sets up our 7th and final match at some point between Carmelo and Andrade. I'd be cool if they stuck that on Bad Blood. Why not? Add 2 more matches to Bad Blood and put match number 7 between these two guys in the opener. Why not, man? Come on. So anyway, we're going to get match number 7 at some point between those two fucking studs who right now in the ring are carrying that show. I didn't mention this last week because I forgot, but it was in my notes. I was so mad I didn't mention it. But the Chelsea Green stuff. She's out there. Apparently she's got a dumpster match with Mia Yim. And last week was when we did the watch-along. Yeah, we did the SmackDown watch-along last week. And I'm watching Chelsea. I'm like, I have no idea what's even going on here. I did not know. I just missed it somehow. I didn't know they had booked a dumpster match between the two, like in a couple of, for next week, SmackDown. So I didn't know that last week. So we're watching. I'm like, y'all, I'm asking the chat, what the hell is Chelsea doing? Why has she got the hat on? Why does she have beautiful, perfect makeup on while she's working with trash? And she's like doing lifts and everything, and trash is falling out. She goes, ew, it's gross, and I'm so hot and sweaty. It was gold. And then she did it again here. They did another training session here with her working out with trash and working around a dumpster. I mean, that's not how you have to train for this, but whatever. They've got the dumpster match next week, Chelsea versus Michin, which I think Chelsea Green is going to win because Michin got a win over Piper Niven last night when Chelsea Green kind of tried to set up a trash can. Piper got thrown into it or whatever, and Michin got the win in the ring there. And I'm really happy for Mia Yim. She always comes through. She's been doing great. She's in great shape right now, and her in-ring work is fun. So I like Chelsea a lot, and I like Michin a lot. So next week, I'm cool. Whoever wins this dumpster match, I really don't care. I just hope the match is entertaining. And this has been a fun build up to this. The fact that they've booked a match, a television match for 2 weeks and had a little mini build to that. I like that. I like that. So good stuff last night from SmackDown. We also, on SmackDown last night, got the announcement that Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill will be hosting Bad Blood. So no championship match for them. They're just going to be on the show as a host. Are there any women's tag teams out there right now that could debut that we're not thinking of? Are there 2 women that are on the shelf? Not really, huh? The Iconics, they're not coming back. Maybe the Jumpin' Bomb Angels or the Glamour Girls, maybe they could show up. But I feel like if Jade and Bianca are going to host this thing, they should be confronted by someone. Where is Bad Blood again? I don't even know what city it's in. Like, who could come out? I mean, maybe they're just not going to come out, and Jade, I guess, in between matches are just going to do little segments with Bianca and Jade, I guess, which is fine with me, seeing 2 beautiful women like that on my TV screen. I've had worse problems, but I just don't really kind of know what the point is. So they're hosting Bad Blood. And also, it was announced on SmackDown that next week, AJ Styles makes his return. We just mentioned him recently. He's healthy. He's not hurt. He recently came back jacked and looking great. And apparently his contract might be up at the end of the year. And we'll see. We'll see what he winds up doing. I'm not sure if I'm accurate on that contract stuff because I thought he re-signed a couple years ago. I don't really know. But I thought I read something this week about his contract maybe being up at the end of the year. Don't really know about that. But AJ Styles will return next week. And hopefully he'll do something significant because he's came back, worked with Cody and stuff, but it's like, come on, I feel like we're not taking advantage of having AJ Styles. In the last couple of years, we have him, in top form because, he's my age. He's old. Tonight, by the way, Grand Slam goes live in an hour. It goes live in 1 hour, 7 minutes. Here's what you're going to get. Saraya versus Jamie Hayter, and it's going to be a Saraya rules match. We have Jericho, Keith Lee, and Big Bill against the conglomeration. Who fucking cares? We got a trios match. Pac, Wheeler, Yuta, a little confused and distracted Wheeler, and Claudio taking on Private Party and Commander. We've got Okada facing Sammy Guevara in a Continental Classic Eliminator match. We also have, this one's nuts, Jeff Jarrett versus Hangman Page in a Lumberjack strap match. We're going to get Action Andretti versus Brody King, who inexplicably was left off the PWI 500. That's crazy. And Jack Perry issuing an open challenge for the TNT Championship. I did read the spoilers. Looks like a show maybe worth checking out. Especially that Saraya and Hayter match is getting some good reviews. All right, and that's pretty much it. Look at there. I made it within my curfew. Man, yesterday I got down to that final Vince episode, and I felt like I really needed another 30 minutes. So I'm sorry about wrapping up the Vince review. I thought 2 hours would be enough, but I really kind of got into some early, detailed stuff and random stuff, just as we kind of talked about and discussed Vince's career and the history of WWE. There's lots to talk about there. So I think I should have probably given myself 3 hours to properly speak about that. But we did get all the episodes in, and that episode is available right now on the channel, right at the top of the page. You'll see it right next to this video. So if you've not watched the Vince review, please check it out this weekend, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll go ahead and knock out some more comments here. Any other super chats before we leave? Oh, I just exited out. Atlanta, that's where Bad Blood is. Thank you for that, sir, for the reminder. Atlanta. Oh, yeah, that's right, because Cody and Roman did the whole Atlanta thing. Okay, that makes sense. I should have known that. Zane G is saying possible Big E return to the ring. I hope so. That would be another fun kind of like red herring. We're all expecting Xavier Woods to turn. And maybe Big E is the one that comes back right when you think what's left of the New Day is about to implode. Big E shows up and is the glue that brings it all together and gives us the most wonderful reunion surprise ever. Zane, I would cry like a blubbering idiot. And by the way, Zane, if the first Raw on Netflix is in LA, and apparently it may be, where'd I put my news on that? I had a credit. Oh, here it is. Yeah. The very first Raw on Netflix could possibly be in LA. WrestleVotes Radio reported this week that LA appears to be the host of the first Raw on Netflix, with the location being the Intuit Dome, possibly. And this is going to be the new dome. I didn't even know they were building this. It's going to be over in Inglewood. So I guess it's going to be right by the Forum and SoFi, and it's going to be the home of the LA Clippers. So the Intuit Dome could be where the first ever Raw is. I might go. I prefer Staples Center. I prefer Crypto.com Arena, Zane, because we know what's around there. That's where me and you hung out. There's a lot to do over there. You can just go grab, a spot at a, place next door and hang out. I'm not sure, what's around the Intuit Dome. I hate going to shows at SoFi or the Forum because there's nothing around there. Where the stadium or the Crypto.com is right there in the LA sports complex, and it's much more fun for gathering and hanging out. So we will see. I might want to do a watch along that night. That's the thing. Even though it's up in LA, I might not want to go to the first Raw on Netflix. I might want to be right here in this chair watching the show with all of you. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm definitely going to be in Vegas for Mania, though. So if you're going to Mania, you will be seeing me there. Off Leather Wings has got $5 for us. Thank you so much for that. At least you older fans only had to go through a few lame years in the new generation era. Us younger fans had to go through the whole 2010s decades of lame. And I like the new generation era. Even Brett on the documentary said he was proud to carry the flag during that time. And even though that the business was down, and I was becoming a late teens, high school, graduating high school during 94, 95, and as hokey and silly and lame as the product could be, I still found myself very much enjoying it. Because what made the 2010s different is that was coming after the Attitude Era, which made it look even lamer. New Generation, was just following the 80s boom, but the overall, vibe of pro wrestling was still kind of the same. But by the time the Attitude came around, changed everything, then they went into that lame era. It was probably even worse for y'all. Off Leather Wings. And you're right. We just had a couple of years of that New Generation stuff, and it wasn't really that bad. Spartan Sprinkles, what's up, man? Appreciate the $2. Well, it's the big Greg. You're late again. Yeah, you came in right at the end, man. Right at the end. All right, right on. Well, that is going to be it for me. I got to get out of here. I got to go back to work. It's been like a brutal week doing podcasts and extra reviews, and I'm working like a dog at work, but it's good. It's good for me. Stops me from being lazy. I'm an old man. I could use the exercise. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Again, I want to apologize for not being here tomorrow for the Classic pay-per-view review, but we will be here Monday night to watch Monday Night Raw together. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your weekend, and I'll be seeing y'all